What's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is General Spear here, and welcome back to another build video here on the channel of General Spear Creates for my Obi-Wan Kenobi Clone Trooper armor. And today we are going to be doing several parts in this episode. We're going to be working on the belt, and we're also going to be working on the chest discs that are on, well, the chest of Obi-Wan's armor featured in the Clone Wars. So we're going to be tackling both those things today. I don't know if we're going to be able to get to painting the parts today because I wanted to do that, but it's a little late and I don't have all the parts quite ready yet. There's still some sanding and whatnot that I'm doing in the background. But we're going to be working on the assembly of the belt, and it's actually going to be really easy to do. The only difficult parts are really just getting the measurements correct and making sure that everything is placed where it needs to go. That's really the only difficult bit. And the materials that we're using are as follows. This is craft foam. It's probably about 1/16 of an inch in thickness. This is a nice cheap option for creating essentially the first layer, which is going to wrap around directly around the belt around here itself on the cod piece on both front and back. Ideally, leather would be a lot more durable. It probably would be less liable to rip and tear. But what I'm going to do and the way I'm going to build this is such that I'm going to be using this. I'm also going to be using this sheet back here that you can see, this black sheet here. This is called PVC sheet. I've used it for multiple projects and whatnot. It's very heat malleable. It's very nice to work with, and it's a nice, soft, and nice material to be able to make the belt out of, or at least the individual sections, basically. And what we're going to do is I'm basically going to be drilling some holes in that and making it such that I'm able to screw and bolt in the pouches and the detonator. I'm going to make it really easy to assemble it in, but basically for upgrading the belt later, for when I do get some leather in to basically make this more durable, I can go ahead and make those detachable, basically, which is really nice. The other thing with the belt, and I'm still figuring this out mid-video, but I think I have an idea on how I want to do this. I want to have the ability to, when I don't have the blade in Obi-Wan's lightsaber, I want to be able to have it holstered. And I figure the best way to go about doing that is probably to do some sort of like maybe 12 gauge wire or something like that, something that's pretty strong. And I just picked myself up from some stuff from Joann's, and it's pretty strong stuff. We'll see how it goes. I might need to test to see if it'll fit inside the CoverTech wheel. I picked some up initially for my Revan costume, which I am redoing parts of, but we will see how it goes. We will see how the test goes in this video. If it works, great. If it doesn't, we will probably end up foregoing that idea altogether and coming up with another idea for a CoverTech mechanism that's not exactly the CoverTech holster in mind. But we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and rip open this craft foam here, of which you can find rolls of this at like Michael's. I believe you can find some at Joann's. You can even find these online at, like, say, Amazon or something like that. Pretty inexpensive. I think I paid $7 or $8 for this. And this craft foam will go a long way for, like, a lot of cosplay stuff. So I definitely intend to use this for my custom ARC Trooper, which is pretty fantastic. And what I'm going to do first, one of the few but necessary tools that you're going to need for this part of the video is a tape measure. And in particular, it's one of the flexible fabric tape measures. You're going to need these in order to get the entire circumference, the entire measurement of the belt on the codpiece, and that will pretty much dictate how much we need to cut out on this. So I'm going to go ahead and button up the codpiece, of which there is still trimming I need to do. I forgot the Velcro isn't entirely in place yet on that, so I'm going to need some tape, of which I do have some out here. I'm still cleaning things up. It got a little messy out here when I did some sanding and whatnot of the different parts. There we go. I just need a strip in order to make sure I have everything there. So I'm going to go ahead and get the circumference of the belt. And hopefully everything will stay pretty much in place. So we're looking right around at about 41 inches. So that's a pretty decent belt length. It's actually a pretty standard belt length, to be honest. So I'm going to set this aside for right now, because we will need it later for additional measurements. So 41 inches. So that means we're going to need to roll out... Oh, and I forgot to check the thickness as well. We're looking right around 3 3/4. So 41 inches long by 3 3/4 thick. So that is going to basically gain us a nice belt measurement all the way around. And that... Oop, I moved the camera there. I'm sorry about that. Hopefully that'll get back in focus there. So 41 inches by 3 3/4 inches, which is actually a pretty good belt size. It might be a little different in terms of the length, depending on your measurements and what you had to do for the codpiece. But for me, 41 inches, and so we're going to go ahead and begin to roll out some foam. And hopefully I've given myself enough room to be able to do this. There we go. So I got 41 inches. And it's going to be about right where I'm marking. You won't be able to see it. Basically just mark at 41 inches. Then I'm going to take a straight edge here. So I'm as flush as I can be. I'm going to move the camera just again so you all can see. And I am going to go, and again, the inch side of this. Sorry if my head is in the way here. Oh, actually it's not. Perfect. Nice. Now what I want to do quickly, just to make sure, is I want to bring this out. Yep, 41 inches. Nice, nice, nice. Excellent. All right, so now is the trick of making sure that I get measurements all the way. I'm going to move the camera just again. I want to make sure that I get measurements all the way down the line so I can get a nice line at the 3 3/4 mark all the way down the line so I can get a nice straight cut is ideally what I want to have happen. So we're going to go ahead and go in, and realistically if I can go on this side, so it's 1, 2, 3, because I have stuff underneath it over here and I don't want to mess anything up. If I can help it. course, it helps having a good marking pen and a lot of light in the situation. I have one out of those two. I have a decent enough marking pen, but light at this time of day is a little bit of at a premium. It's later in the day for me than I would have liked to have started on this. Let's just say life got me a little bit sidetracked earlier. And it prevented me from getting started earlier than I would have liked. I'm going to move the camera just again. Oops. So yeah, I'm moving kind of just slowly down the line here. Lining up my marks and making sure that we are as straight as possible, because even though this is foam and even though I'm intending on replacing this later with leather, I still want to make this look good as much as possible, because I don't know when down the line I'm going to be upgrading this to a leather or something of that nature. But I do know that until then, I do want to make this look as good as possible. So we are going slow. We're doing this as properly as possible. And we're just going with the flow of things. Okay. Let's make my final mark. I'm going to have to move things around just a little bit, but not too terribly much. Okay, there we go. And what I'm going to go ahead and do now, I think I have my straight edge under here. I do. Or not my straight edge, my utility knife. This is thin enough where you really don't need to put a whole lot of pressure or effort. You can actually cut this with scissors if you want, if you don't have a utility knife. But I'm going to use my ruler here, making sure I'm nice and lined up. Now, ideally, I would like to use something like a meter stick or something of that nature. This will work just fine. I'm going to stop just short of where the ruler ends. Feel where I've cut. Line it up again. And begin that same pass. And rinse and repeat. And there we are. Kind of got off track maybe by a millimeter here on the end, but that's no biggie. That is honestly no biggie. And then, of course, down here at this end, got to make sure that this cut is all set. Lining it up. That's at a weird angle for me, but it's not too big of a deal. And there we are. You can go ahead and just carefully peel this away. It didn't cut all the way through, apparently. I think this knife is just a little bit dull. kind of a little update on what things are happening. I am in the midst of preparing for a photo shoot. That's going to be happening in May. I think I mentioned this already. I'm not 100% sure. I intend on having this cosplay as part of it. I intend on having my ARC Trooper Havoc armor all set to go, of which that at this point in time is nearly finished. I also intend on having a Nathan Drake cosplay, of which I'm partly wearing at the moment. Okay. So that, despite how dirty it looks, is the belt. I just want to do a test fit to make sure that it goes around nice and smooth all the way around. I say that's pretty darn good. That is pretty darn good. That will definitely work. Ooh. That will definitely work. That covers up all of the previous belt, and that allows for a nice bit of coverage. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to make sure to have some Velcro on the inside of this, just so that it attaches down properly on top of the belt here. But of course allowing for things like the tunic to still go through it. So, these parts here, this part of the belt is going to be what we're using the PVC sheet for. Now you'll notice that there are actually 3 different kinds of parts. There's this part which runs all the way around the belt itself, and then there's the 2 pieces here that are part of the closure system, where we got this part that would, and both of them are the same size more or less, but they just have this notch right here. This side has the male end, this side has the female end, as most will refer it to. And of course, you can see that indentation there. We are going to be recreating that. That is not where the closing system of the belt is going to be, however. I'm going to show you how that's going to work. We still are going to cut these out individually, so that is going to be a thing. But we need our trusty tape measure again, because even though we know that the top to bottom length is 3 3/4, we need the width, of which we can find out fairly easily in just a second. The width is 2.5 inches. So that is actually pretty fantastic. So 2.5 inches, that is good to know. And how many pieces do we have just in total? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on the front, including the closure system, or what is typically the closure system for the clones. So 8 on the front. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on the back, which is pretty awesome. So 8 on the back. You'll notice too that these 2 guys here they have this curvature here. This is where the detonator goes. I'm not creating this curvature, but I do need the little indentations that are on the end pieces of the curvature here. I don't know if it's going to show up in the camera all that well, but there are 2 little indentations on this armor that show where the screws go on the detonator itself. And I'm going to need eventually those measurements for at least 2 of these panels, just to make sure that those, transfer over and everything. But 8 on the front, 8 on the back, so 16 panels total. Next, what we're going to need is the measurement for the closure system here. And it is 3/4 of an inch. So that means there's a 3/4 inch insert that goes from this side, and then a 3/4 inch, I guess, input or whatever it is, that's on this side. And how tall is that? 1.25 inches. Okay, so 1.25 inches, 3/4 of an inch. I'll probably have to remeasure that later, but that's the notch that we're going to create in the panel, or two of the panels, basically. So we pretty much got our work cut out for us at this point. I am going to chop this PVC sheet down into smaller pieces, and I am going to get everything set up such that we're ready to for the next part. So I'm going to pause here, and I'll be right back with you. Okay, folks, we are back. New day, and of course, we have our 14 slabs for the belt. And now we need to mix parts 15 and 16, which of course are the front parts of the belt itself. And so we're going to set these aside for right now, except for one, because we'll go ahead and just trace out our measurements as before. The 2.5 by 3 3/4. I remembered it this time. Let's take our piece of PVC sheet here. I'm gonna go ahead and just cut a slab. Where did my utility knife go? I had it here. I'll be right back. Alright, so I have my piece here, and what we're going to do, I'm going to bring the camera down just a little bit so you all can see. And we're going to go ahead and begin measuring this out. So we're going to measure out our 5-inch section again. So we're going to do the same thing as we did before with making all these. So 2 per section for the 14. But we're going to do 5 inches in total length. 2.5 point in the middle. And we're going to make the width 3 3/4. I'm going to get the other side of the ruler here. 3 3/4, right there. Same on the other side. And then, of course, making sure that this is 5 inches all the way across, which it is, luckily. And we'll make another mark in the middle here. And we'll go ahead and just draw a line right on through, but we're not going to cut it just yet because I want to make some measurements yet again. I don't quite remember what the measurements are for the notch, but I'll bring up the section right now. So this is the cod piece here. I'm going to go ahead and get a ruler on here. 1.1 inch. So it looks like about 1.1 inch clearance on either side of the notch, which will be good. So we will go ahead and replicate that here on our measurements. And if I remember correctly, I said that it was 3/4 inch wide. It is. So about right there. And that it was 1 inch. Basically the remaining length, which, you know, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. Doesn't seem right. 1.5 inches? That is definitely not it. 1.1 inch by 1.1 inch and 1.1 inch. The measurement itself might be a little bit off, so I'm going to bring it in just slightly closer. I'm going to go ahead and draw the notch out. Okay. So that's roughly what it should look like with the slab here and the slab here and then the notch in the middle here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and cut this out and be very careful, of course, to make as precise cuts as we can. And I'll go ahead and do this on camera with you all. The easiest cuts are going to be, of course, just to do the straight edges first. Do a light scoring on all sides. You don't have to cut all the way through, nor should I recommend that you do on the first pass. We're just concerned with getting the surface broken first. Okay, and now, instead of cutting and making a score pass all the way through, we're going to just do it to the point of the first notch there, and start again at the other line there. Like so. And now we're going to do the same thing for the notch right in here. And I'm not going, when I'm making a cut, when I'm going all the way to the end, I'm not going right to the corner. I'm actually stopping a little bit short just so I can start on the other side and make the notch as precise as possible. So I'm starting right at the corner of the line. I'm going all the way to just before the end because I'm accounting for the remainder of the blade behind the tip, just so it doesn't cut into the other piece. Flipping it around and starting the other corner. If I had a bandsaw, this would go a lot faster. Actually, a scroll saw would probably be even better because it's a finer blade. Especially if you're working on, say, curved objects, it tends to go a little bit smoother. But I'm going to go ahead and get the exterior popped out first here. A bandsaw would also make it such that a lot of these pieces end up being pretty straight. Now, I have one, just not here. It's not exactly unpacked at the moment. But when I eventually redo this belt and make the lower layer, as I said before, out of leather, I will go back and redo all of these pieces to make sure they are as straight as can be. And a tool like a bandsaw will definitely help with that. And I'll get this side as well. I don't mind redoing these. PVC sheet actually is fairly cheap. It's very similar to that of Sintra. For anybody who's done like some of the Mandalorian Merc cosplays and whatnot, Sintra is a very common material used for that. This stuff works very similar to that, to Sintra, but it's the PVC. It's still PVC. It's still that material and everything. Okay, right to the edge there. In Sintra, you can find it a lot of different places. You can find it at Home Depot for fairly cheap and inexpensive. Of course, the price does go up in terms of the thickness and the size, so keep that in mind. Okay, so we are loose on this edge just about. There we go. The thing I love about this stuff is also it's lightweight and heat malleable. And it heats up faster than Sintra does, actually. Sintra, there's a little, you have to wait just a little bit longer in order to heat it up. Not too much. There's actually not that big of a difference, but PVC sheets do tend to heat up a little bit faster than Sintra does. And there you are. That right there is your connection on the front of the belt, which is pretty awesome. Now I'm going to clean this up with the utility blade here just a little bit. Make sure I get all those pieces out of the way. I might file this down, which, and speaking of which, after you're done cutting out all these pieces, you'll notice, of course, on the codpiece itself that they are rounded. Like there's roundedness in these indentations. So your job now is going to be either file or sand or both. All the pieces on all the edges. You don't have to worry about the back plates. You just need to file what is going to be your front side and making the edges all rounded and everything. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and it's going to be exciting, and that's going to be our next step. So stay tuned for a lot more time-lapse. Okay, folks, once you're done with all the sanding of the individual pieces, you're set for the next part, which is going to be heat forming the pieces. And all that's really needed for each of the parts here is just a slight bend that replicates a curvature that's similar to that of the cod piece. It's not much, because each individual piece is going to make up for the bend all the way around the cod piece itself, or all the way around the belt. So we're going to go ahead and take our heat gun. And like I said before in the beginning, with the PVC sheet here, it takes very well to heat. It does not take that much to heat it up, and it also bends fairly nicely. And it also seals in all of the sanding job and whatnot as well, similar to that of EVA foam. So we're going to take all our pieces. I'm just going to line them out in a row. Do a few to start. But before I do all of them, I am going to take two of them out for putting holes in. And actually, I'm going to do that with two more of them as well, because we are going to leave them out for drilling holes in them for both the detonator and the ammo pouches that will assemble here in just a moment. So let's go ahead and get started on the curvature of the rest of them, and then we'll go and focus on those four things here in a second. Okay, folks, we're ready for the next part, and that is actually just to drill out the holes for the detonator and the pouches. Like I said before, I have four set aside. I've already marked where the holes need to go. Got my drill ready, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but I got two holes on either side of the plates for the pouches. They are offset from the center. This is the back of one of the pouches, and one set goes on that side like so. The other set goes on the other side like so. So it's slightly offset. You'll notice, as an example, on my Havoc cod piece, as everything falls over, there's a line. Sorry, I'll let the camera focus there a little bit. Come on. There you go. There's a line right in here, right in between the two pouches that I have for the ARC Trooper armor. The edge of the pouch here, the one that we're going to be attaching to our Obi-Wan set here, is right in line with the line of this pouch here, this groove between the two plates here. And it's offset on the back here by that much, and you'll see that same groove kind of go along with that line as well. It's also, the plate itself is right in the center of the length of the pouch here as well, so we're going to replicate that on this, and that's what we're going to do for either side. So let's go ahead and begin drilling out those holes. But before I do, really quickly, I've also drilled out the holes for the detonator, and there's one right there and one right there, and that's the rough length that we're going to need for this. So let's go ahead and begin drilling those out. Okay. I have the cod piece on. Oh, yeah. That is definitely going to work. I'm fairly flippin' satisfied with that, I gotta tell you. I was really sure, you know, worried that this was going to be short a little bit, but it's not. It actually is going to work quite well. I still have room in the middle of the cod piece where it's not sucking me, around my insides or anything like that. Let's check out the back there. I think that is going to work quite well. So all that's needed to do now, after this bit, is to do the pouches and the detonators and assemble those and make sure that these are all attached in the right spot. That's going to work very darn well. I gotta say, I'm pretty stoked how that looks. It looks basically a part of the cod piece itself. I'm really pleased. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this off and we'll get ready for the next step. Okay, folks, I'm out of the cod piece now, and I'm so stoked that that actually works. I didn't think it was going to for the first time, but you all saw it on camera. It works. It looks great. I can't wait to upgrade that later to make it even better. But for right now, we're going to put that aside. We're going to call that done for right now, and we're going to focus on the accessories, mainly that of the two pouches that are going to hang off the side, as well as the detonator. Now, this is not required. The detonator part of it is not required for the Obi-Wan Clone Trooper armor for the Rebel Legion. However, for me, I'm just adding it as a nice accessory because it's a detonator, and who doesn't want a detonator on their pouch? So I've already gone ahead and I've marked out right there, the holes in which we're going to drill to attach to the back pieces here. As well as additionally, I already marked out ahead of time the holes for the back of the pouches here and here. And then we also have some holes that we're going to put on the inside there for these guys, the decorative hinges. Now, these are a part of the kit that is from Imperial Surplus. Kevin Ware includes these. You can find these at Ace Hardware. Unfortunately, Osh is nowhere longer around, Orchard Supply at this point. They were a great company and whatnot, so Ace is my go-to at this point, or at least my very first go-to to get any hardware, and you can find these for not that much. They're only maybe like a few bucks kind of deal if you need more of these. But these are going to be the hinges that we'll put on the inside for the ammo boxes. So first things first is to go ahead and cut those out, and additionally also just to trim the outside edge. And we also got some holes down here that we're going to need to mark, which I will go ahead and do with you now. Right there, there, and there. And those are also going to need to be drilled out on both the pouch front halves. And aside from drilling those out and trimming the edges, that's really all you need to do. You don't need to worry about cutting this out or anything like that. The indentation's there. You don't need to worry about that. The only other part that you do need to cut out, and I've already marked this, are these two circles here that are also part of the kit from Imperial Surplus. And these are the two halves, or the circles, that will close up the circle ends, or the holes, on the detonator here. Now, as far as attaching the detonator to belt, there's one of a couple ways that you can go about doing it. You can either bolt it in, get some small bolts basically that'll go all the way through the belt and the detonator itself, and then put a nut on it on the inside, and then attach the halves. That can be a little tedious. It is a very secure way of going about doing it. You can do that. What I like to do is I like to just put some screws in there and some glue. And that's really all you need. That's what I did for my Havoc armor. It's not fallen off yet. If it does fall off, I can always reattach it that way. That's completely fine. And it's lasted me for about a year at this point. So it's pretty secure just putting some screws in there and a little bit of glue. Given that I'm going to upgrade the belt at some point, I'm just going to put screws in there and hope that it holds. It should hold. Um, if I absolutely need to, I will put some glue in there and then I can just rip it out at some point. So that will be what we do. But yeah, go ahead and cut these out, drill the holes, and we'll be ready for the next steps. Okay, ladies and gents, after the painting process there, you are ready for assembly. And now it is the time to begin that process. So what we're going to go ahead and do first is we're going to fix the detonator to the belt. And what I'm going to go ahead and do, since I did not do this already, is I'm going to quickly drill the holes again through the foam. So that I have a reference point as to where to put the screws. All right. It's pretty good there. And what I might go ahead and do is just drill another screw right behind it. Just to make sure that it stays in place pretty well. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are back and we are approaching the final part of this rather long video process of this belt and accessories video, and we're going to be creating the discs that will rest on the chest plate for Obi-Wan's cape and tunic. And quite simply, I'm going to be making these out of EVA foam. Perhaps not maybe necessarily the thickness that I desired, but it'll do for this project. And if I need to remake them later on, I can always do that. But basically, I'm going to take my slightly used roll of duct tape as a template. And it's actually a pretty good size for us to make our discs. And we're going to go ahead and trace around. Like so. I've been painting a lot today and everything, and I've been working on the armor and also weathering, which will come in the next video. I don't know when these videos are necessarily going to be out. Hopefully this one will be out fairly soon, or at least you'll will be watching it. But I hope the painting video will come out not long after this video. I got a lot of editing for these videos because they are a little long. This one took a little bit longer than I expected, but nonetheless, it works out pretty well. All right, we are all drawn up, and I'm going to actually go ahead and take a moment to plug in my foam cutter, and we'll get started. Okay, folks, I have my hot wire foam factory cutter up and running. It is plugged in and it's currently on, so it's ready to cut. Be sure to be very careful because the wire is very thin and it's also getting very hot, and it will cut through foam like butter. Easiest way I'm going to go about doing this is just cutting it in half so I have a little bit less surface area to work with, and I'm just going to slide it along like so. Alrighty. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. And now we're going to switch on over to the belt sander and go ahead and smooth these out. Alright, the next thing after we've smoothed them all up is we're going to heat seal them and get them ready for painting. So we'll go ahead and begin that process. Alrighty. And now we're pretty much ready for paint, our primer and paint. And then after that, it's applying some Velcro, and we'll see how it looks on the armor. Well, ladies and gents, that pretty much concludes what is basically a very long video for me to create, but hopefully a very informative video for you to make in both the belt and the chest discs. Pretty much all that's needed for these guys is to apply some Velcro on the back, and I will show you how that's done, especially when we go over the tunic and the cape, which will not be in the next video, but the video after. The next video is going to be pretty much the entire painting process from start to finish. It'll also involve the weathering process that I'm going to do for this entire thing. I've already weathered down the belt and the discs, and they look pretty good as far as the splatter and the weathering and whatnot. I like the look. I'll apply the Velcro and whatnot, and we're getting pretty close to the end here, folks. But yeah, next episode is the painting process, and we are, of course, also going to work on the cape and the tunic after that. And after that is going to be strapping in foam inserts, and any remaining details, and the costume is done. We're going to be wrapping it up fairly soon. But thank you all for watching this video, everybody. I hope you all enjoyed. Feel free, of course, as always, to Hulk smash that like button. Comment in the comment section below if you're new. Do not forget to subscribe. And thank you all for watching, and may the force be with you always.